Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to my channel. My name is Ines, and this is where we feel the feels safely and talk about our emotions and spiritual ascension. So, the last few episodes I've done have been a little bit more on the serious side of things. So today I wanted to change it up and talk to you guys about plant medicine and my own trip with psychedelics. Okay, so first warning. And this is something that I discovered on my own the first time I did shrooms in high school. I had a lot of underlying PTSD that I never took care of, that I was just suppressing like crazy. So I didn't enjoy my trip with psychedelics the first time around. I hated it. It was like all my friends were having so much fun and I was like seeing demons. So that is my first warning. If you want to do plant medicine, please be prepared to face your shadows, face your traumas, etc. And I say this as a warning because I feel like a lot of people, plant medicine is great for healing those parts of your subconscious. I'm not denying that whatsoever. But if you are not prepared for that trauma to come out, you will be rudely awakened. And it might actually trigger some underlying disorders that you may have. So make sure you are mindful of all of this going into plant medicine. One thing I also really like about plant medicine is, and the reason that I do it is because it gives me a deep dive into my subconscious. What I mean by a deep dive into the subconscious. So whenever I feel like I'm mentally and emotionally steady or leveled, I'll do a deep dive into my subconscious. And that will either reveal things I have to work on, or it'll help me kind of transcend deeper into a subconscious vision or ability to envision and get into my deeper subconscious. There are people who do plant medicine regularly. There are people who do the microdosing for healing. If you are somebody considering this, or you are somebody who does this, make sure you know that there are various ways to use plant medicine. They all come with a warning, because anytime you dive into your subconscious, you kind of have to be warned about what might be living there. For me personally, like I mentioned at the beginning, there was a lot of unhealed inner child trauma that was coming up. And this is where sometimes I use it to see if there's any other things I want to work on. However, the last time I did it, I had great visions. I laughed the entire time. And the crazy thing is that like a week later, those visions came true. So that was really cool. And that was probably one of the only times that I didn't have any sort of worry or shadow kind of creep up. So my trip with the psychedelics, when I definitely believe that microdosing has the power to heal. We have been programmed, and I mentioned this I think in every episode, we have been programmed to believe that we don't have a subconscious, when really we all do. We all have the ability to tap deeper into our thoughts. It's just a process of getting there. So it's kind of like every time you get to a certain level of the subconscious, it's like there's a wall, and there's a wall that you have to break through. Now, this wall could be certain lack, limitations, shadow work, any sort of healing work to be done. And then once you break through that wall, you go to the next level. The next level has another wall, and so on and so forth. So the use of psychedelics definitely helps you understand what that wall is made up of. But it can also make the wall appear bigger and stronger than it actually is. And it might keep you in a state of fear to go from preventing or from breaking down that wall. So whenever you do any sort of psychedelics, please make sure you know your mental, emotional state. If you have any underlying disorders, that all has to be checked. Okay. So if you are somebody who wants to start with psychedelics or wants to try them, but you're fearful of them, you kind of have to break through that fear, and I feel like that's where microdosing does help. But one thing I really enjoy about the psychedelics is that it allows you to see things outside of our programmed minds. So it's almost like outside of the matrix and capitalism. One thing I will warn you about though is that spending too much time in psychedelics keeps you away from the human experience. And you kind of being able to see what the world really should be like, or how you should be feeling when you're in that deep dive. When you come out of that deep dive, when you sober up essentially, it can lead you to anxiety and depression because you feel safer and better in that subconscious. So this is where I only do it once or twice a year, just because honoring the human experience is very important to my spiritual journey. So my favorite thing about the psychedelics is that it's kind of like, it's that level. It like brings you to a higher level. The things you see when you're on psychedelics is similar to, like, you can see sacred geometry, you can see and connect more with people across the grid. You get to speak more clearly with your guides. So it's just a really cool experience. I really do wish that everybody could try it at least once, just to help them understand what else is out there outside of our regular norm. But I understand why a lot of people don't, or why they stay away from it. When it comes to spirituality, you don't need psychedelics, but I feel like a lot of us have fun with the psychedelics. Sometimes this world, especially when you're on a spiritual journey or you're emotionally healing, it gets heavy and you kind of forget. You get into a state of mind of, well, what is all this for? It's all of this hard work, and what do I have to show for it? So sometimes going into these psychedelics actually gives our mind a break. So instead of us using our own energy, the psychedelics almost kind of trigger certain things in our brain so that we don't force our energy, it just comes more naturally. Each time you do one of these and it unlocks certain parts of your brain, that tends to kind of stay. And for me personally, when I do an unlock, when I do a deep dive into my subconscious and I unlock a part of my subconscious, I try and train it in real life without the use of psychedelics. There are certain things that in 2 years I haven't been able to train, which is fine. But basically, I think it was like 2019, the winter of 2019, we just did, instead of drinking for New Year's, we just did some chocolate mushrooms. And I remember seeing my guides all around me and like talking to them, and I feel like I could actually properly communicate with them as if they were in this room. And I haven't yet, from 2019 Christmas time, New Year's, to now, spring 2022, I have not been able to master that part of my subconscious in real time. So that's something that I'm definitely working on. I have done psychedelics once since then, and it has been more about the human experience than it has been about connecting with my guides. So this is where it's really important for you to understand that your subconscious, your higher self, is still in charge. One thing I also want to mention is that if we get stuck in psychedelics too long, if we end up using them very regularly, we end up dismissing the human experience. And this is why only a select few can do the psychedelics on a regular basis, and it's usually because they have a higher spiritual responsibility to channel and to send messages to us. And this is where they're kind of like the only ones who are allowed to not pay attention to the importance of the human experience as much as the rest of us. So in spirituality, all of us have a role to play. For like 98% of us, 97% of us, we are supposed to be learning about and bettering the human experience. And the other 3% are in charge of kind of being our spiritual leaders. So they are almost exempt from the human experience. How to know if you're exempt or not? It's your guides will be able to tell you. If your guides aren't telling you anything, it's probably because you need to respect the human experience more. I feel like a lot of people, like the light workers that are exempt, they still understand the need to respect humanity, the earth, and the experience that everyone has. And they usually tend to have a bit more compassion for the oppression and violence that happens in the world. Where I find people who do plant medicine regularly, they start to disrespect the human experience by talking about how the war isn't real and all of this. To me, that is something that is a direct indication of you are not following your spiritual purpose properly, and you are using psychedelics to escape your purpose. So I want to send that warning out for people to understand, if you start using psychedelics, to pay attention what is happening in that trip, in that vision. And this is where doing some of these medicines with a group, especially with an experienced leader, is very important. Anyways, so that is one quick episode on my trip with psychedelics. If you guys have any questions, definitely ask, and I will be doing a more fun episode with it later on down the road. But for now, if you are considering something like that, please be warned that it can have certain side effects that will help you heal, but don't expect it to be all fun and games right off the bat, okay? And also, if you do choose to go down that road, please make sure you're still respecting the human experience and you're not being ignorant to the hate and violence that still happens on this earth. Okay, I'm gonna leave that for that one, and let me know if this helped. Let me know if you have any other questions about certain stuff like this. This is going to be going into another episode where I talk about spiritual tools and tangible items. Psychedelics is a great spiritual tool. So until then, enjoy yourself and stay safe. Love you guys.